name is Jan-Peter Mueller. I'm head of infrastructure investments at Commerz Real, and therefore responsible for all non-real estate investments that we do. We focus mainly on investments in transport and mobility, net-bound infrastructure, and energy generation. What makes energy grids so interesting to investors? I think the basic rationale for most infrastructure investments, of course, also holds true for energy grids. The services are ultimately provided through infrastructure as stable in demand. They often do serve basic human needs. What does it mean? We can hardly go without energy, we can hardly go without water, and as the current crisis show, I think it will also become increasingly important or difficult to go without fiber or good and fast internet connections. So due to the fact that these services are considered as a must-have by a lot of people, the infrastructure that enables these services is usually also comparatively heavily regulated, which on the upside leads to a high predictability of the cash flows and to a low correlation to financial market and liquid assets. The demand for energy grids as an asset class is growing as well, and I expect it to grow even further after the Corona crisis, simply due to the fact that many investors will see the benefit of having more assets that protect them against these reoccurring shocks in the market. That said, investors interested in entering the asset class energy grids are faced with growing competition and quite complex legal and regulatory regimes that ultimately are vital in order to understand the asset itself, in order to judge it, and in order to say if an asset is worth your money or not. Thus, I would say it takes a long-standing and reliable market expertise and a network spanning state authorities, energy providers, specialized legal and technical service providers, and others, and that across several jurisdictions in order for you to be able to also spread your portfolio in energy grids across different countries and different regions. Therefore, I think you need, in a certain way, specialized asset managers that can reliably guarantee you that market access, that also can reliably guarantee you to have that long-standing and reliable market expertise on an international level. If you don't have that, then it's really hard to build it up from the scratch, and I think simply not economically feasible to build up an in-house expertise in that for institutional investors. And what I'm often faced with is the question, you're investing into grids, how can you make sure that only renewable energy powers gets run through these grids, because only then you have ESG conformity. That, or somewhere along the lines, is the argument. And I always answer them that I think I can't, quite honestly. Grids transport all kind, especially energy grids, transport all kind of energy. But I think what people are missing is that if you don't invest into grids, then there's not going to be any renewable energy. What does it mean? In a lot of countries, if you take Germany, or also if you take the US and the UK, then you have certain centers where renewable energy is better produced than anywhere else in the country. But often these places are then not the places where the energy is actually needed, so where the industrial hubs are. So in order to produce renewable energy and to transport it to where it is needed, you need these energy grids. And I think there it comes into play that there's a high ESG compliance, in my opinion, because without these energy grids and without these new energy grids and these new investments into the energy grids, you won't have any meaningful renewable energies. The question is, what effect does COVID-19 and the crisis that we are ultimately currently in have on infra investments and grid investments? And I think it's fair to say that we've seen the massive effects COVID-19 has on the economy in general. And there are many attempts to contain the effects that it has, but nevertheless, the international stock markets plummeted. central banks and governments are coming up or are reacting with major stimulus packages that, of course, in return affects a lot of other assets like bonds, oil and gold prices, etc. However, if we look at the portfolio that we have, and I think if we look at core plus infrastructure investments, where I would certainly put energy grids into, I think it's crucial to note that they are not making a lot of headlines during the past weeks, and these real assets are really, in my view, currently standing the test of time, that they're not very much correlated to a lot of other assets or to the market, but that they are very stable, that they are not impacted by other huge changes in the economy. And I think if I was to name the asset class less likely to be negatively impacted by an exogenous shock like we're currently having it or like we are currently seeing it, I would go for energy grids, core plus infrastructure investments, and would say, due to the fact that it is long-lasting physical infrastructure, which is often heavily regulated, they surpass these crises. It's more dent for them than a real crisis. And therefore, I think it would not surprise me to witness even more demand in the future for these kinds of investments, simply because a lot of investors are going to see that it really protects their portfolio from exactly times like we have it right now. In general, I would say energy grids are an asset class with a bright future, and definitely worth looking at and investing into.